Alright, 'tis the season of me filming basically inside of my Christmas tree so that it can be somewhat in the shot of these videos. Hello friends, it's Lisa, and today I am going to be recommending some of the books that I read this year based off of my Spotify Wrapped. So in case you do not know what Spotify or Spotify Wrapped is, I'm sure if you're on the internet at all around this time of year, you probably know what it is. But basically, Spotify is a music streaming service, and at the end of the year, they give you a kind of wrap up of your year. They tell you the most listened to artists of your year, and also they give you a playlist of your, I think, like 100 most played songs. I think this year they had 101 songs in the playlist. Don't know why they added that extra one song, but I'm not gonna argue. And I thought it would be fun to recommend some books that I read this year based off of my Spotify Wrapped. And I did this video last year and I only recommended books based off of my top 5 songs. So this year I thought, why not make it a little bit more special and do 5 more. So I'm going to be recommending books based off of my top 10 most played songs of the year. Especially because my top 5 songs are from 2 artists and that's it. So we're going to have some variety, a little bit more variety, I guess, with the top 10. Alright, enough babbling. Let's get into the recommendations. So my first recommendation comes from my number 1 most played song of the year, and that is As It Was by Harry Styles. So I feel like this song is a lot about reflecting on the past and the changes that have been made in your life and kind of embracing those changes, but also maybe being a little bit bittersweet about the past and the things that have changed. And for this, I wanted to recommend The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. So in this book, you're following Florence, who's actually a ghostwriter for a very popular romance author, and she goes to meet her new editor for the very first time and is going to ask for an extension on her deadline. She's having trouble writing about romance when her love life is very much not in the greatest place. She's having a lot of problems with it and has kind of had some complications with a past relationship. So she actually gets denied this extension from her new editor. And while she's struggling with that, she gets a call from her mom that her father has actually passed away. So she goes back home to spend this time with her family, help plan the funeral. But while she's home, the ghost of her editor shows up. So now her editor is also dead. So she's trying to help him figure out what his unfinished business is and help him move on while also maybe developing feelings for him and also grieving her father. It's quite an interesting mix of things. But I feel like Florence as a character has to go through so much change in this novel, not only with her love life, but with her family and the fact that when she goes home, you know, she goes back to her hometown that she grew up in where there are a lot of things from her past that she has to kind of face. But she's also at the place where she grew up and her father isn't there. And it's this big change and this big shift in how she views her life and her experience at home. So not only is there a big change obviously in her life with the loss of her father and going back home and seeing her past really like up close and personal by going back home, but she's also facing a lot of challenges with her love life, with the challenges that she had with her past relationship and now with this ghost editor. I also kind of thought that this would fit As It Was because As It Was is obviously talking about these bittersweet feelings about change and embracing your past self and moving forward, but it's kind of hidden by this like upbeat, catchy song. And I feel like that really applies to this book as well. This book does deal with a lot of more upsetting topics, obviously grief and loss, and just all of those things are such big factors of this book. So obviously be aware of that going into this book if you're not in the right mental headspace to read this, but it also is a rom-com and it has like funny moments and there's like romance happening, so it kind of has a mix of these more like emotional moments with a mix of funny and like romantic moments as well. So this is my recommendation based off of As It Was by Harry Styles. So my next song, my second most played song of the year, was Decode by Sabrina Carpenter. So this song is kind of about this relationship where you spent a lot of time over analyzing situations and looking for maybe signs or messages from your partner that maybe they weren't even giving you, and just really trying to figure out what went wrong and just kind of being done with trying to overanalyze it. But also Sabrina Carpenter, when talking about this song, she actually said, I'm gonna look at my notes here to get the quote. She said it's like the inability to accept situations that are out of her control, being hard on herself and blaming herself for the entirety of the situation. This song is a reminder to herself to accept whatever happens in her life as it is. So for this, I'm gonna be recommending From Lukov with Love by Mariana Zapata. So in this book, you're following Jasmine, who is a figure skater, but has kind of faced a lot of challenges in her career and in competing with figure skating. And there's a certain situation and a certain thing that happened to her that made her kind of realize that her competition days may be coming to an end. But then Ivan Lukov comes in and gives her the offer to become his partner for that season and to compete together. So I'm not so much recommending this book because the relationship between Jasmine and Ivan remind me of what the song is about. It's more so the way that the two of them, mostly Jasmine, view figure skating. Figure skating is such a big part of this book. It's such a big part of these characters and their lives. It is something that they both care for so deeply. And because of this situation that Jasmine has gone through that has prevented her from being able to compete, she kind of blames herself, and she definitely is like overanalyzing everything that happened and seeing if there was anything she could have done differently to prevent that. And she's just kind of very hard on herself because of the situation that she's put in that is preventing her from competing. And I think throughout this book that she learns, oh, hi. Hello. Okay, the cat is here. But what I was saying is that throughout this book, Jasmine starts to learn that like not everything was in her control and that it just is what it is. There wasn't anything she could have done differently, and to stop being so hard on herself. And she's in a much better position now than where she was when she was being so like analytic about the thing that happened to her and being so hard on herself for it. Now she's in a much better place. So this kind of applies. It's more so to do with like Jasmine and her relationship with figure skating and the past events in her life that led her to the events of this book, not so much the relationship, but I just love this book, so I kind of was trying to make this book work for any of these songs. Okay, my third most played song is Read Your Mind by Sabrina Carpenter. Yet again, Sabrina making an appearance. So this is a song that's all about trying to understand the mixed signals that your partner, the person you're interested in, is sending you. They may be saying they want one thing, but they're doing something else. And for this, I'm going to be recommending The Duchess Deal by Tessa Dare. In The Duchess Deal, you're following the Duke of Ashbury, who just wants to get married purely to produce an heir. That's it. And then Emma comes along and she is offered the opportunity to marry him, produce an heir, and then obviously have like security and a place to stay and a home and always having a roof over her head. But she just has to marry him and produce an heir, and then that's it. Then they're done. And so she agrees. So it's purely marriage of convenience. There's no actual emotions there between them. They're purely together so that they can produce an heir for him. And then, you know, when real feelings start to maybe arise, there starts to be some confusing signals that the others are giving to each other. So there's definitely some mixed signals that the two are kind of seeing from each other as they start to both kind of develop feelings for each other that are very real, even though that was not a part of their agreement and they're just supposed to be together to produce an heir. So I kind of thought it worked for this. I also just love this book, so once again, just wanted to recommend The Duchess Deal. The fourth most listened song for me this year was Already Over by Sabrina Carpenter. Can you tell that I streamed Emails I Can't Send on a loop for months? I bet you can't. So Already Over is kind of talking about this relationship where they said that they're going to end it, that they're not going to see each other anymore, but then they kind of keep going back to each other. Like you decide you don't want to be together anymore, but then they show up and they're there and you can't help but be together anyways. So for this, I'm going to recommend Carrie Soto Is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So this kind of, I feel like, relates to Carrie Soto Is Back in a few different ways. Obviously the song is about a romance, and there is a romance that happens in Carrie Soto. Carrie Soto starts developing this relationship with someone and she's kind of having trouble allowing herself to be with this person, and so she's kind of trying to put a stop to it and be like, no, we're not going to be together. I don't want this. It's not happening. But then every time he shows up, she can't help but want to be with him. So I not only think that this reflects the relationship that Carrie Soto starts to develop with someone in this book, but I think it also could reflect her relationship with tennis and her career, because this book, Carrie Soto Is Back, is following Carrie Soto, who is a professional tennis player. She was amazing. She broke so many records, and she set a specific record that I can't remember now. The tennis lingo, like I understood it when I was reading it, but it's long gone now. But she set this record that she has held for years and years, and then she ended up retiring. But after 6 years after she has retired, someone is potentially challenging this record that Carrie Soto has. So Carrie Soto decides to come out of retirement to defend this record. And a part of the chorus of this song is, I say I'm done, but I'm still confused. How am I supposed to close the door when I still need the closure? And I think that that really reflects her relationship with tennis, saying that she's done, saying she's retiring, she's not going to play anymore, and then she still needs that closure when it comes to her record and wanting to make her record stand and make sure that she is the one holding that record. So I feel like it kind of applies to her relationship with her career with tennis. I think the song saying, you know, I'm done with this, it's over, and then still allowing yourself to go back to it, I think is definitely reflective of Carrie Soto's relationship with tennis. The fact that she retired and then comes out of retirement just to defend this title, I think is kind of reminiscent of the song. So I think it kind of works, perhaps another stretch, but it definitely applies to the relationship within this book. So my 5th most played song of the year was Late Night Talking by Harry Styles. So as you can see, Harry Styles, Sabrina Carpenter, they took over the top 5. But for this, I wanted to recommend Beach Read by Emily Henry. Another one, I really just wanted to talk about this book yet again, as if Emily Henry isn't super popular, but I read this book this year and absolutely loved it. In this book, you're following January and Augustus, who become neighbors at their beach houses. Both of them are also writers, and they're both kind of struggling with writer's block, so the two of them decide to switch genres. So he originally writes literary fiction, she writes romance, so the two of them decide to switch, that he'll write a romance and she'll write a literary fiction. And then the two of them decide to go on these dates that aren't dates, but maybe they're dates, to kind of give each other the inspiration and the research that they need to write these genres. But there's a lot more to it than that. I feel like both of these characters are really struggling with a lot of things in their lives. The reason January's at the beach house is something that she's very clearly struggling with, and I don't want to say too much because I don't think it's in the synopsis, so I don't want to say too much, but both of them have things that they're experiencing, both difficult changes in their lives, some losses that they've experienced. They kind of lean on each other and help each other out through these things that they're going through. But this song really is just about like late night talking, being with someone, missing someone, and there's also a specific line in the song that says, when nothing really goes to plan. There's a little bit more in between that, but then it says, I'll do everything I can to help you through. And I feel like that is January and Augustus. January and Gus are both experiencing very difficult things at that point, a lot of changes in their life, a lot of things that they're trying to accept and they're struggling with, and the two of them are kind of there for each other to help each other through those things. And also like the romance part of this book, this song is about being with someone and, you know, staying up late and talking to each other, and then the line, now you're in my life, I can't get you off my mind, like definitely is like their relationship. The two of them definitely become close and do spend a lot of late night talking through their books, talking through their problems, talking through their relationship. I just love them so much. So I just love this book, and I think that this definitely applies to late night talking. Okay, next, the 6th most listened song that I listened to this year was Labyrinth by Taylor Swift, which is either impressive or concerning considering Midnights, the album that Labyrinth is on, came out like 10 days before Spotify stops tracking your information for Spotify Wrapped. So this was my 6th most listened to song in the whole year, and I only had like 10 days to listen to it, so it's fine. I am mentally stable. And I do have a couple of recommendations for this. One is simply because I have to mention it, and it's technically not a series that I read this year. I am going to be rereading the first book in this series this year in December, so maybe it kind of counts, but like I have to mention it, and that is The Dark Artifices trilogy by Cassandra Clare, specifically Kit and Ty from this series. I don't want to say too much about why I think this relates to Kit and Ty. I actually saw someone on Twitter compare Labyrinth to Kit and Ty, and I don't want to take full credit, but I think you all need, if you've read this series, if you know what has happened with Kit and Ty and the things that they experience in the series, go Google the lyrics to Labyrinth and read through it with Kit and Ty in mind. You're welcome, and I'm sorry. It's just very painful, and I had to mention it because I love them, and I think of them every time I listen to Labyrinth. That may be why I listened to it as much as I did in 10 days. It's fine. But my actual recommendation, a book that I read this year that I think kind of applies to this song, is On These Black Sands by Vanessa Rasinen. This is a fantasy romance where we're following Aoife, whose family are kind of the people who are in charge of this particular place. Her views and the things that she has always believed, the fact that she always thought that her family, the rulers of this place, have been looking out for her, just everything that she thought she knew has been completely flipped upside down. And after experiencing something very upsetting and very traumatic, she's like, I need to get away, I need to get out of here, and she just runs from home and really has no direction, she has no plan. And then she meets Declan, who is a pirate, and she sneaks aboard his ship, and the two of them kind of make this deal because she's able to kind of provide help for him, while also he's able to provide her with a place to go, as she doesn't want to go back home knowing what her family stands for and how that's like how her perspective of that has changed. So Aoife is just really not doing great. A lot of things have changed. She's not feeling great. Then she meets Declan and he is able to provide a lot of help for her in a lot of ways, especially once a romance maybe perhaps starts developing between the two. Yeah, I think like the lyrics, "It only hurts this much right now," was what I was thinking the whole time. Also, like, "It only feels this raw right now, lost in the labyrinth of my mind." And that kind of shows the struggles that maybe Aoife is going through, and then meeting Declan and the, "Oh no, I'm falling in love. Oh, I'm falling in love. I thought the plane was going down. How'd you turn it right around?" How her life was crumbling down and how she was experiencing so many challenges and so many changes in her life, and how he kind of was able to turn that around for her. So I think it works. I think it applies. And also, if you have any fantasy romance recommendations, I still want to know all of the pirate recommendations. So if you have any, let me know. Okay, the next song, my 7th most listened to song this year, was "Kate's Brother" by Macy Peters. This is just a super fun and upbeat catchy song, and it's Macy talking about how she dated her friend Kate's brother. So my recommendations, it's kind of a bit of a stretch maybe. I wasn't really quite sure how to go about this recommendation, but I'm going to just recommend the entire Kiss Quotient series by Helen Huang. My kind of thought process for this is that all of the male like main leads in this series are all related. I believe they're all cousins. I don't think any of them are brothers. They may be. I read the series at the beginning of the year, so my memory is a little fuzzy, but I know that they're all related, and I believe they're all cousins. So that's kind of my connection to Kate's brother. It's not great, but I did what I could. So all of these are like companion romance novels. The Kiss Quotient, you're following Stella, who is very inexperienced when it comes to love and relationships. So she hires an escort named Michael to kind of help teach her different things, and also to just teach her how to be in a relationship. And then in the Bride Test, we're following Esme, who is given the opportunity to come to America and potentially have the opportunity to marry someone named Kai. So while she's there, she's trying to kind of seduce him and make him fall in love with her so that they can get married and she can provide a better life for her family. But while she's there trying to do that, she ends up falling for him. And then we have the Heart Principle, and we're following Anna, who goes viral playing the violin, and because of that and because of the expectation put on her, she is feeling a lot of burnout and is really struggling with playing the violin after that. And then her current boyfriend decides that they should have an open relationship, see other people before they really commit to being together forever. And she's really angry about it, but she's like, you know what? If he's gonna do it, I can do it too. I'm gonna have just a bunch of one-night stands and see what happens. But then she meets Quan, and those one-night stands kind of go out the window, and she just kind of starts spending more time with him and getting to know him. And this series, for the most part, is really fun, really silly. I will say The Heart Principle, the third book in this kind of companion series, is less silly. It's a little bit more emotional, hard-hitting. It still has those romance vibes, but it definitely is a lot more emotional than the first two. So keep that in mind if you're gonna read this series, because the first two are really lighthearted and really silly and fun. I definitely prefer The Kiss Quotient and The Heart Principle over The Bride Test, but still just like a fun series. I think I listened to them all in audio and they were super fun to listen to. So definitely would recommend, definitely enjoyed reading these romance books this year. All right, so my 8th, is that what number we're on? Yes, 8th most listened to song of this year was yet another Sabrina Carpenter song. It was Nonsense. And this song is nonsense. It's just a fun, silly, goofy time. It's kind of talking about how she's so interested in someone that she gets really anxious around them and she starts speaking nonsense. She starts blabbering and doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And the song itself is just really like fun and silly. So my recommendation for this song is Four Aunties and a Wedding by Jessie Q Satanto. Hello, Sam. So this is a sequel to Diary for Aunties, where in the first book you're following Meddy, who gets set up on a blind date and through certain situations ends up killing her date. And so she has her aunties help her dispose of the body, but the body gets sent to the wedding that her and her aunties are going to be working the next day. So they spend the wedding day trying to organize this wedding while also trying to get rid of a body. And there's also so many other things happening. And in the sequel, Meddy is actually getting married. So her and her aunties hire another family to kind of organize and run the wedding. But then they find out that this family is a part of the mafia. Also, that door didn't just move by a ghost. It was the cat. So on her wedding day, they're trying to find out who the person they're trying to take out is and trying to save them. So both books in this series are very chaotic, very just like silly and fun books. I feel like they have the same energy as Nonsense by Sabrina Carpenter. And Four Aunties and a Wedding was the one that I read this year. I read Diary for Aunties, I believe last year, 2 years ago. I don't know. time is fake. And I definitely like Dial A for Aunties more than Four Aunties and a Wedding, but it was still a fun sequel, and these books are just so like chaotic, and I love the characters. They're so endearing and so silly and funny, and I just love these books. They're just such a fun time. You definitely have to go in with the right expectations, just like obviously, by those descriptions, you could probably guess that they're a little out there and maybe not the most realistic and just a bit silly, and you kind of just have to take it at face value and just have a good time with it. But I love this duology. I think it's so much fun. I don't know, I got the vibe that there might be another book in this series at the end of the sequel, so we'll see. But yeah, super fun and a bunch of nonsense, which I think applies to the song. Okay, so my 9th most listened to song this year, I believe we're on 9, is Music for a Sushi Restaurant by Harry Styles. So the way I decided to connect this song to my recommendations was through food. He obviously is singing about music for a sushi restaurant. He's talking all about sushi. So I thought that that would be how I would connect these book recommendations. So the books I wanted to recommend are The Tea Dragon Tapestry and The Tea Dragon Festival, I think, by Kay O'Neill. But this is just such a sweet and wholesome graphic novel series. You're following these characters who own tea dragons, and tea dragons are these little dragons that grow tea off of their antlers, and if you brew that tea and drink it, you will be able to see the memories of their owners. So definitely the tea that the tea dragons brew play a role in this book. It is like the purpose of the tea dragons. So the fact that Harry Styles also mentions green tea at one point in this song, I feel like it works. Okay, finally we have made it to the last song, my 10th most listened to song of this year, which was Memories by Conan Gray. I'm actually surprised it wasn't higher up. I had a few months where I was just listening to this song like on repeat, so I'm surprised it didn't make it higher, but I absolutely love this song. But this song, Conan Gray is kind of singing about this person that he may have been with, that he's finally started to move on from this person. They're finally starting to feel okay, and then this person kind of comes back into their life and messes with the progress that they've made. And the whole song is saying like, I wish that you would stay in my memories and just wish that you would stay in the past and not come back. So I do have a couple of recommendations. The first one that I have kind of relates a little bit more to the song somewhat, and that is Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. So definitely not in any romantic way that this relates to the song, but this book you're following this character named Will, whose older brother has been killed, and he wants to get revenge on the person that killed him. So he gets on the elevator to go and get this revenge, but on each stop down on the elevator, someone from his past comes onto the elevator to chat with him about what he's experiencing and what is going on and the decision that he is about to make. So it's a very emotional story, obviously with the death of his brother and wanting this revenge, but all of the people that are coming onto this elevator from Will's past are people that have passed away. So it's this weird experience that Will's having, but it's just so emotional. So it's not so much that Will wants these people that are coming onto the elevator, this people from his past in his memories. He doesn't necessarily want them to stay in the past, but it is definitely a reflection of people from his past and the memories that they have together and reflecting on that and wanting to kind of move forward. So I don't know if this is necessarily the best matchup, but I definitely think like both involve people from your past coming back and challenging you and making you reconsider things and making you consider how you're going to move forward. And then my other recommendation for this song is a little silly. It's more so based off of how the song and this book made me feel. The amount of times I cried listening to Memories on repeat, and then the amount of times I cried while reading this book, a lot of tears. Both of these things just made me very emotional. So my recommendation, based off of the fact that this song made me emotional, is All My Rage by Saboteur, because this book made me emotional. I also feel like I had to get this book in here somewhere. I don't think I can do a recommendations video at this point going forward without mentioning this book. So in this book, you're following Sal and Noor, who are both experiencing a lot of challenges in their life. Sal's mother is very sick. His father is dealing with alcoholism, and he is trying to help run this motel that his family owns that is really struggling financially. And then you're also following Noor, who has been raised by her uncle, and she also works at her uncle's gas station, and she wants to get out of this town. She doesn't want to be stuck there her whole life working at this gas station, even though that's what her uncle wants. So she starts applying for colleges in secret behind his back. And Sal and Noor, clearly at the beginning of this book, used to be very, very close, very good friends, but something has occurred that we don't know right away that has caused them to drift apart. But through the different things that they're going through, the different challenges that they face, they kind of come back together throughout this book. This book is definitely not super plot driven. It's more about the characters and the difficulties that they face and how they go through them and navigate them together, and the kind of decisions, good or bad, that they make trying to deal with these things. And it's just so good. It's so emotional and sad and beautiful and bittersweet, and Sabatir is just so talented. And I know I've said this like every time I've talked about this book, but you can really tell how much this story meant to Sabatir. It seeps through the pages how much care and love went into this story and how much it means to her. And yeah, like I said, I just want to recommend this at any point that I can, just forever. In every recommendations video that I ever do, expect this to show up. And maybe it could relate to some lyrics and memories, but I mostly was going based off of the emotions and how both the song and this book made me feel, and how they both made me so emotional and made me cry a lot this year. But that was it. That was the final song, the final recommendation. So those are all of my recommendations based off of my Spotify Wrapped this year. Definitely let me know down below if you use Spotify, what your Spotify Wrapped looked like. I'd love to know like your top songs or anything. I know a lot of people make jokes that people don't care about other people's Spotify Wrapped, but I genuinely do. I love looking at people's Spotify Wrapped. So let me know what your top songs were, your top artists, if we have any songs or artists in common in our Spotify Wrapped, I'd love to know. But I think that that is going to be it for this recommendations video. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.